Yeah, 99 Green Street. What do you need us out of your jurisdiction? The ad says all-night TV repair. Well, if you don't come, my handicapped son's going to miss his favorite TV program. He's blind. Well, he's a good listener. 25 bucks! Shove it up your ass! Fred Hobbs with the news. The top news story tonight. Premier Bill Bennett announced today a 100% wage cut for all government employees in the Nelson area. Question on this move, the Premier replied, quote, "We are simply strengthening Nelson's primary industry, unemployment insurance." And from Victoria, there are confirmed reports from inside sources that the Cabinet has been meeting in closed session to make difficult decisions affecting all British Columbians by holding seance to call up the ghost of Wah Bennett. Sources say that the ghost has told Bill that he should try to grow a beard and go to Canuck hockey games. Special news bulletin. The Loose Change Theatre Troupe, who are currently presenting You're Gonna Be Alright Jamie Boy at the Sub Pub, have misplaced their audience. If you know the whereabouts of this audience, please show up in person tomorrow night or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday next week. You know, according to the review in the Nelson Daily News, it's a damn good show. Hey, Mel, you send Steve that check? What? Yeah? Okay, great. An undisclosed source is reported to have uncovered fraudulent scheming within the Education Ministry. According to this source, Education Minister Jack Heinrich admitted to not having the proper education to hold office. Asked if he would resign, the minister replied, "It's okay. If we have our way, everyone will be in the same boat real soon anyhow." The winter schedule for workshops and readings available through the Kootenay School of Writing are at the door. But right now, live from the DTSS Sub Pub, the Kootenay School of Writing presents the second revised and updated edition of the Kootenay Oral Anthology. Yay. Great work.
Thank you, David. Welcome, people, for coming out in this snowy evening. We've got a lot to get through tonight. I think a couple of people may not make it in because of the roads, but most of the people are here. What we've got are 3 sets. If you have this little green program, you'll see the way it's arranged. This is an edited anthology. In other words, most of these people submitted more than they're going to read. And myself and Joan Webb and Caroline and Gary edited the material to what you have in front of you here. So what we're going to have is for each set will come up and sit on the sofas and the easy chairs and come up and deliver their piece, each in their turn, and then we'll take a short intermission and get the second set ready and on through the evening. I'd like to draw your attention to the little yellow flyer back there on the table as you come in, which is the winter program for the Kootenay School of Writing here in Nelson. And there's going to be more than this, but this is basically it. And if any of you are interested, we urge you to get in touch with us and let us know what courses you're interested in. So, let's proceed. Luane. By the way, I'm not going to introduce these people. They can say something about themselves if they like, but we're going to move fairly quickly.
All I can say about myself is that I made it over here from Creston, which is no mean feat on a day like today. The light on any ordinary street. The light on any ordinary street falls in waves, rolls along windows, concrete walls, hopeful as water seeking a level, flashes messages back from the empty street. We are the measure of such small desires, such longing to be otherwise. The light on any ordinary street reflects in pools on faces, ghost-like that pass and pass, nodding, gray-black, streaked with light. We are the measure, are the measure. The light on any ordinary street falls a stranger message, illuminates the faces which pass and nod, smiling to their reflections in the rainbow-haunted windows. I write a lot of walking poems because I go for a walk practically every day after I get up from the typewriter, and sometimes I get an inspiration, not always. And this poem came from a walk I went on where I was watching a flock of geese in the spring fly northward, and I was trying to see if it was the same goose that led the flock all the time, or whether they kept changing leaders. And I watched this flock as it went, and then I woke up and I discovered that I had been away from myself watching this flock of geese for some time. This is called Another Poem for Sam because I keep writing poems for my friend named Sam. Another poem for Sam. What are we waiting for? I was at the neighbor's long deserted shack. I got lost. The noise, swans booming, a flight of crows on a string round and round my head. I crawled into his unfinished bomb shelter, crumbling granite, water under wall, sniffing the heritage of yarrow, bindweed, dandelions, kinnikinick, Oregon grape, cradling the fragility of grass, naked to the rain. Later, walking along the pavement, trying to follow the leader of a flock of geese, carrying them. Days later, I returned. It was still raining. What are you waiting for? The sharp, minted carnage of grass, sudden manifestation of tenderness, rain on the new leaves. This next poem is short, and it's just for fun. And I wrote it when we were building our water system. We're homesteading like everybody else, and we had to dig this incredible 1,600-foot ditch through rotten granite in order to get water into our house. And my husband was talking about headworks one day, and I fell in love with the word headworks. So I wrote this poem. It's sort of a pun. Headworks. You said you were building a headworks, something about water, and I was delighted, capering about in the yard, playing poet, and tasting the possibilities of such a new word. I said, the spring inches its way down past the frozen scree, past each moment, as though there were no other. You said, see what is built, a dam, a sense of possession, a place for water to grow. The next poem is also a short prose poem, and I wrote it while I was bicycling one day. It's called Spring Ride to Kuskook. I am bicycling to Kuskook. The sun hops like green sparks from leaf to new leaf. I am going past the swamp where the red-winged blackbirds sing and swing drunkenly from one hollow reed to the next. For once I am not thinking about words. The words are gone, and there is no thin wall of them like glass between what I see and hear and what I am turning them into. Past the rat slough, which is almost filled in, past the first clump of arnica daisies, past a wild cherry in flower hiding under some cedars, it won't live long, past the thin curl of leaf against stem, and still no words, like a miracle, such a relief. But I know now, I live on too many borders, and there's always something to say, even when they're for no one. Always some words to cut out and paste together to make a picture. There is nothing here I understand. I am a wall I can't see through. The sun lights my eyes, The eagle comes down too close. I am dazzled, lost again. I visit here when I can. I never stay quite long enough. This last poem is what B.P. Nicol would have called, quote, the depressed lyric. It's called Valley Fever, and I think you all know the feeling. Not even poets find this poverty romantic, despite the setting. Night air throbbing with frogs and geese. Almost every day I drive to town. There's the same people to visit, and it's always raining. The gray sky shuts down tight, a lid with red edges. Someone's weeping. What's astonishing is life going by at such a dizzy rate I can barely remember each day and what's happening. I am planning a garden again. I'm planning escape routes. I thought meaning went with territory. I'd like to stay here without remembering. I forget to write letters. I drink coffee all day. Can't find something. Keep looking for surprises. Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Bob Wakulich, and as you probably said, I'm also taping this tonight for the cable station. If anyone has any problems with that, if they don't want to be taped, let me know and we won't run the camera. Okay, but we're going to be showing this on the cable station as the local community broadcasting, etc. This is a chapter out of one of a number of novels in progress. The latest one, I guess, the one I've been working on more than anything. I dabble in poetry and had a few successes here and there, and I've got a very, very large file folder with my rejection slips that I very optimistically titled Submission Replies. But okay, the premise of this novel, it's sort of a coming-of-age trip, which I suppose is something that everybody ends up doing. Apparently, from what I've heard, most novelists start off with their coming-of-age novel. What is behind this novel is a man who's working as a reporter at a newspaper in Calgary is suddenly thrown into a lot of torment because he can't remember what his mother looks like. So he goes home he goes back to his hometown, but when he gets there, he doesn't want to go see his mother until he can remember what she looks like. So he's sort of going around the periphery and, looking up his brothers and his sisters and trying to get from them some idea of what he should be looking for. And the way the chapters are set up, he's got he starts off with sort of an ongoing dream that he's having where he's locked in a closet. So each chapter starts off with that, with him locked in the closet and discussing what's going on in the closet at the time. And then it shifts back to what's actually going on in his search. So I guess that pretty well explains it, so we'll start. Ooh. There seems to be something left behind in every pocket of the coats hung here. Lots of tissues crammed and rounded into pellets, dollar bills and jingle money. Hey, a 1947 Maple Leaf dime. Keys, letters, and overfolded notes, receipts, buttons, and screws. When putting something back together, Dad told me, if you have more than 3 pieces left when you're done, you're in trouble. Phone numbers and directions scrawled on napkins, tie clips and cufflinks, half tickets from various events, some paired, some not. I produce a deck of cards from the depths of an old green lineman's park and greedily use it to set up a game of solitaire, a pursuit I've always rated right up there with crossword puzzles and browsing store catalogs. Then I realized that this is a marked deck, the deck I sent away 4 years ago. At the time, I chose it over a squirting lapel flower, and I had a drawer full of other things: a joy buzzer, a stick of mousetrap gum, a ventriloquist chirp whistle, a rubber turd, glow-in-the-dark fangs, a pair of goo-goo goggles. That was the summer I was a Dickie D boy, tingling through the streets peddling fudgicles and Sunday cups and pulling in $10 or $12 a week, so I could go through the ads in the pages of Mutant Human Comics and with a fanciful eye and get all those things that really counted. I hear the sounds of a flute outside the door, the sounds of Allison practicing her scales just before her music lesson. Some of the notes are very round and clear, like the bubbles rising up from Lawrence Welk's orchestra, while others seem to shriek and fall writhing to the floor, dying painful deaths. It makes me want to stand up and go out somewhere just like it used to, and I start to page through the coats on the hangers. Tiny blue felt blazers with fiery maple leaves on the chest pockets, raincoats and ponchos, winter coats with silver dollar buttons, crest-covered baseball and hockey jackets, a fringed buckskin coat, the parka, and a sweater jacket with a hockey player on the back. All of them are mine, were mine. The scales stop. Tom, this is the right closet, isn't it? I look out through the hole and see Allison sitting cross-legged on the floor, a shawl draped over her shoulders, her flute at the ready. Tom? What? What do you want? She titches in the way of Auntie Millicent. Just visiting. Mom said I should try to cheer you up. She did? This is the first time it occurs to me that Mom must know I'm in here. Where is she? God, I don't know. She shrugs. She went to bingo, I think. The jackpot's 58 numbers this week. She continues her scales. Ah, me, ah, me. The rented car they gave me in Toronto is very new and mechanically sound, lifeless and full of warm, even boring color, completely unlike any of the fire sale beaters of my teens. Despite this, I found myself reaching down to shift the grinding gears of my bondoed and primered VW Wandabug as I turned onto Lakeshore Road. Beaters, you understand, are very personalized machines. They need your tender pull on the choke, your smooth pushes on the clutch, your pleading on cold mornings. They need you to shake and jiggle the right things, bounce in rhythm with the starter and say the magic words. Wanda was a pretty sucked-out item. But due to various quirks in her aging design, she gave a very souped-up and shit-hot impression. I can remember goading a few overdressed Mustangs into Daytona stars from stoplights, Wanda roaring off the mark like a sailboat catching lesser breezes, while the other car seared an inch or so off its tires. They laughed, I laughed, and everyone was happy. Nancy had told me to say hi to Mom, assuming that I would pop up to see her before meeting Duane. When I told her I wasn't going to do that yet, she gave me a short but evident hairy eyeball. I caught glimpses of Mom and Nancy's face, things I'm sure I recognized but couldn't put together. I didn't want to try to explain it to her again. If I couldn't see Mom in my mind, how would I know it was her? Duane was going to meet me at the bar, and it was still a while before opening time, so I opted for a quickie tour of the old neighborhood, which wasn't so much the old neighborhood as much as it was where the old neighborhood was. The changes had started long before I left. Neighbors selling off their little onion patches, small acreages of good arable soil falling into the clutches of pen-wielding men wearing black suits and rubbers who gave out calling cards like coffee cake and rubbed their hands in their pants a lot. Cement and lumber trucks came more and more, and men in plastic hats with leather pouches made houses and roads and circles and ways and curbs and sidewalks in the fields. My parents eventually sold off their acre too, and it quickly disappeared into the subdivisional depths of Lakefront Village, one of a number of relentless housing projects that had suburbanized rural horizons, sharpened property lines, and in this case saw fit to leave a few diseased and overgrown cherry trees and a meager parquet as a reminder of a more fertile past. Our old house was still standing, but had fallen prey to the remodeling efforts of a string of handy guys who had puttered around on a few additions and resold it at a price reflecting the cosmetic results of their valuable time. The blue shingles were now red, stone-studded stucco had become aluminum siding, and weird reddish ornamental shutters clashed with the old black iron railings. It was up for sale once more. They put up all the houses they possibly could. What used to be an open field lined by a dirt road leading to peach trees behind the house was now a house and another house and another house, and so on. The dusty construction machines were all gone now, and so were all the tractors pulling flatbed trailers full of fruit. Idling by the curb out front, I got odd glimpses of the old house and the area around it. A summer flash of a wading pool fight in the front yard. A winter flash of the neighborhood's biggest and best hockey slough a little ways back and to the left, full of yelling and toques and oversized overtaped sticks. A man appeared at the house's front door. He paused for a moment on the veranda, now sporting a cedar floor, and then he came slowly down the steps and out onto the lawn, approaching my car with a look that mixed down-home curiosity with urban contempt. He was almost by the car when I realized there was absolutely nothing I wanted to talk to him about. That isn't Mom, I thought. My left foot depressed an invisible clutch pedal while my right hand sought out Wanda's gear shift. I blinked, jammed the car into low, and drove on, the man's scowl shrinking away in my side view mirror. There were no more stone driveways or wooden telephone poles along the road, no more empty lots with tall wild grass. Frost fences abounded where short hedges used to be. While this wasn't the road of my youth, I still managed to see Duane nailing a noisy crow on an upper branch with a chestnut from his slingshot, Nancy skipping double dutch with the Patchko twins, 10, 20, 30, 40, January, February, apples, peaches, pears, and plums, Daniel falling off his tricycle and onto his plastic dump truck, following him on a string, me kissing Melinda in some bushes that were now embedded in brick. The last leg of the tour involved going to the end of the road to not see the drive-in. For the longest time, it had been surrounded in part by an abandoned orchard, the trees all gnarled and oozing gummy sap, a place where we could hike through and hide to smoke cigarettes in, a place that parents forgot. Between that and a rough and crumbly cliff was the big screen and a hilly stone lot with speaker poles and a marquee out front that was always announcing Dusk to Dawn Show, Triple Horror Carload Night, or Academy Award winner, or closed for the season. There had been a few nights every summer when the lineup of cars would be backed up down the road to our place or further, horns honking, clunkers overheating, and beer bottles tinkling into ditches in the twilight. That's when you could hear the movie right down to Lakeshore Road. The first driving manager I remember was a jolly, roly-poly man who wore checkered shirts and chewed on fat cigars with great fervor, Mr. Vasiliev. He was well known among the neighborhood's kids and parents, having done a fair number of hospital runs with casualties from the drive-in playground, myself included. "You not cry so much, okay?" He said this to me over his shoulder while I blubbered across his back seat with what turned out to be a sprained ankle picked up from a scuffle on the giant slide. "I gonna make sure. I gonna tell him not to cut your leg off, okay? So you not cry. I got some licorice twist. You want? You want some popcorn? I got another box." This, I figured, was top-notch medical treatment. He also paid 50 cents or its candy equivalent for filling a bushel basket with papers and other cast-offs that were left on the lot. Scott brought him down a pair of ladies' underwear one day, and he laughed so hard I thought he was going to shake apart. He gave us all a package of toffee on top of our regular wages for that. During Mr. Vasiliev's reign, the kids would gather at sunset in the grass about 10 feet from the drive-in's wood rail back fence. We'd watch the cartoons in the trailers, lingering later as we got older to watch some of the opening feature, or sneak up on the couples who had left their cars and tried to disappear into the dead orchard's taller grasses. Very rarely did we dare to venture beyond the point where we could discern definite gasps and moans, and from there we would lay quite still and snicker into weeds. I was still very young, but even then I knew that had something to do with dinkies swelling up. People yelled and chased us, but it was never a problem to vanish into the darkness. This was an easy risk, like throwing snowballs at city buses. I was starting grade 6 when Mr. Vasiliev sold out and retired. The faceless new owners immediately surrounded the lot with a frost fence, complete with an angled barbed wire ridge. Soon after, Mickey Mouse was whitewashed, the playground equipment was hauled away, and the police would periodically be called in to chase kids away from out back. These changes in driving policy managed to get a lot of kids' names into constables' notebooks. Dirt bombs and chunks of wild sod were being flung at cars, and the police seemed to think that anyone doing something as childish as that would hang around and wait for them to show up and ask questions. We were discovered one night by a policeman who held a light on us, told us what we were guilty of, further accused us of breaking windows in a nearby new subdivision, and then made us line up in front of him like a military troop ready to present arms. Light glinted off his silver buttons. He had a bit of a pot, something that so many of them had. I began to wonder if it was issued with the uniforms. "Why do you kids have to be so stupid?" he asked us, his stupid little dust broom mustache sweeping the words off his lower lip. We didn't do anything. His flashlight turned on me. What? Even with Perry Mason on our side, I doubt the cop would have changed his mind, but I felt impelled to correct him. Honest, we were just watching the movie. Not wanting to spoil the mood of a good bust, apparently, he walked over, grabbed the collar of my fairly new shirt, lifted me off the ground, sticking his nose between my eyeballs and bathing my face with breathfuls of salami and tobacco aromas. "People saw you do it, you little twit." He held me there, waiting for me to start crying, and that was the first time I tried like hell not to. When you don't cry, you burn. Your head becomes a hot plate with a kettle on slow boil. I knew that if I started to cry, it wouldn't matter what I said. He would drive us home and tell our mothers what we hadn't done, and they would believe him. And if I came home crying, it would further prove his point. And if I told Mom that this idiot had tried to choke me with my own shirt, that would be taken as a lie. He held me like that for a long time, and I burned, trying to burn a hole in his head. "Tough little tart, aren't you?" he said, letting me fall to the ground. "I hope your mother flails the bejesus out of you." He knew what mothers did when kids came home in cop cars. It was not a matter to be debated. Trouble with the law, and that was bad enough. "God knows," Mom yelled at Dad after I'd been banished to the bedroom. "I don't know what is wrong. He never had any trouble with the police before. That's all I need around here, a real juvenile delinquent." And as I lay on the bed burning, I heard Batman fighting crime on the living room TV, making the world all Marvy. It was hard to be anywhere after dark that summer without a cruiser showing up, and I was chauffeured home a number of times. Dad was duly informed of each ride I took, and I had developed a knack for being within half a mile of some kind of trouble, and he seemed to be more willing to believe that if I had anything to do with the trouble, I wouldn't be getting caught nearly as much. On one of his weekends at home from the boats, he'd smiled as I was leaving the house, preceding his comment with a ceremonious squeak of his lawn chair. "This blue limousine service of yours, maybe you could skip it and just walk home tonight." By that fall, they had started putting in a subdivision about 50 feet from the drive-in's back fence, and those moving into the houses that following summer had barbecues on their back lawns pretty regularly, inviting people over for burgers, tall green bottles, and a movie or two. It wasn't until their view of the big screen was blocked by plastic partitions that anyone really complained about the noise. It was a year after that the drive-in closed, and over a period of 3 months we saw the big screen demolished and truckloads of equipment and fixtures being carted away. Machines appeared on the hilly stone lot, digging out more basements and making piles of dirt and soft clay. The entrance to the drive-in was now a road that I had no inclination to follow. There was still a small section at the end of the road I was on, a short path to the cliff behind a guardrail with an old rusty pitted bullet hole ridden sign, "Dead End Cul-de-sac." I parked the car right there. A foghorn bellowed in from the lake as I walked down the path. I've always found that to be a very comforting sound. I smile every time I hear it. Looking up from the cliff's edge, I saw 3 boats waiting to get into the locks. This was a place I had come to many times to sit, to think, to cry. I sat down, crossed my legs, and picked at some grass beside me, my nostrils twitching from the smell of the lake, the pungent fish aromas, seaweed, sand, and wet wood. There were shiners in the shallow water swimming in circles and doing their death dances. I tried again to picture Mom, trying to come up with something other than her hands rubbing at themselves or digging into her purse for milk money. After 10 minutes, there was still no face, and I felt a tear welling up in the corner of one eye. God damn it, Mom, where are you? Thank you.
My name is Meghan Baxter. I'm going to read 3 pieces tonight. The first one is a Kootenay poem. And this is dedicated to those people who took me on my first hike up the Kootenay Glacier. Hey, hey, hi, you. Clamber through that face of history, of stone. Wonder at the sight of breeze, blushing, brittle, pungent memories, dead. The silent screen passes over alpine patterns, weaves magic colors. Then the new genre now at this crush. Pick, smell, and forget. Remember only the delicate autumn stalk. Silent images in history clear. My head dry, my speech, my wind. The second one I'm going to read is called The Motel. This one is for Sheila. There are times when I have to disappear. I could stay in a motel room forever. I could vanish, and I'd like that. After a while, it would get to me, I know. When the night receptionist leaves, the straight people come, the day shift. A woman arrives, starts her day at this early hour. She is in her mid-50s, lots of lines in her face, the kind that are covered with a pinkish-orange layer of base makeup. Her name is Betsy for the time being. The other woman who arrives in the morning is a lot younger. She's kind of dumb. She wears a lot of makeup also. But she can get away with it, unlike Betsy, because of her youthful skin. The young woman is a chambermaid. I'll say her name is Deborah. Betsy yells at Deborah a lot. She has more age and more face. I'll change the word disappear to keep moving. There is no story because I'll always have to keep moving. Even from the edge of my chair. Even from the edge of my chair. You are the speaker, and I can hear you. And for how many words, listen, darkness. I cannot tell you how much I love you, but listen, darkness. I cannot tell you how often I have dreamed of drowning, but tell me, how often do I wander into the darkness? Oh, to breathe, breathe, breathe. Like a fish I was, to drink the mud, the calm. And the fright is gone, I cannot tell you. Do not scream beneath the thickness. I can be calm, ever breathing, not unlike what a fish would do in mud, and it was glistening and welcoming, and half of me went to the peace in the love I cannot tell you. That's it.
But this first poem is of another place. It's got a similar reason for being, but different atmosphere altogether. And it's called A Place Like This. I come into a place like this, diminutive. Pull a beer from the self-serve counter, slip into a corner. I watch. And there are times when I bankroll my fantasies. I never sit, but wander, drink in hand, searching eyes. It's all there. Or wiggling in her seat, throwing her shoulders just a bit. The beat of the music. These places have beat, acoustically pushed your throat, maybe up your ass, from what I've heard. I've never been too good. Polite conversation, you understand. The connection on the floor. I can get her there. And when we dance, circling, easy, first separated, distance and our steps, rarely syncopated. I know if she'll stay one slow tune. Dave Secor here in the building is giving drum lessons. They're pretty cheap. So have you ever had an urge to make noise? Take a lesson. It's called making noise. This is...
He took the stick in one hand, closed his fist around it, and with the other hand levered the wrist into a twisting kind of stretch. He changed his grip on the stick, and using it as a tool again, he stretched his wrist as far as was comfortable in the opposite direction. He switched hands, and did the same to the other, all part of the warming up. The point of the exercise, of the practice, is discipline. He had a craving to learn this instrument, a longing from childhood really, but now that this fantasy was closer to fact, he accepted that he wasn't playing it to make music. He pinched one stick between the first knuckle of his forefinger and the tip of his thumb, felt the balance, and then did the same with the other. His wrist bent back at right angles, and he began, starting slow as he'd been told to do. The discipline is to do it slow. First, one stick down, whack, then the other one down, whack, and then he kept the pace steady, even. The drum pad sat on the seat of a kitchen chair, and he on another, legs spread, elbows tucked into his body, the sticks falling outward in between his legs. The chance to learn these things, to practice these things, jumped into his lap by luck or karma or whatever. He had thought, I want to, someday I will do that. He had spoken of it, and now the realization of the idea. He liked the noises he was making, whereas a few years ago, the noise of a typewriter made him nervous. This drumming was aggressive and meshed with his new way of thinking, that he would be making a lot of noise, and that he must be prepared to defend the doing of it. Once when he was taking a lesson from David, someone yelled down the hall, "What's that noise?" David leaned over and said, "You wait, pretty soon you'll be hearing, 'What's that racket?'" His eyes studied the circle drawn in pen in the center of the pad. He watched the tips hit inside, bounce out, arc up in the air, and stop as the base of his stick hit the base of his palm. He looked off a ways, out the window, at the snow falling, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... He changed pace from single stroke to double. His pace increased. The sticks hit twice right, twice left. The noise bounced up into the room. His wrists cocked and broke, 1 and 2 and 3 and... The count had started in his brain silently, but he knew he had to vocalize to hear it said. On a downstroke he said, 1 and 2 and... The noise moved out and through and 3 and under the doors and 4 and up the stairs and 1 and... Are the neighbors gone? I hope they're gone and... He switched to paradiddles. Right, left, right, left, left. The sticks rapped inconsistently now. It was the newest thing learned. Sometimes a stick would clack off the rim, a harsh sound, alone. It sounded a new noise, part of the racket. If he stayed with it, if he could stay with it, yes, he would move from noise to racket, to music maybe. He shifted his right foot out from under the chair. He put it down with a thump, pivoted from the heel, thump, waited for the count and thump again on the number, thump and thump and thump and thump. He increased the tempo, pushing it, getting cocky with his primitive skills. He liked using all his limbs. The racket grew and vibrated, the toaster hummed, the ashtray ticked on the counter, coffee cups rang together. He felt like chanting, an Indian in ceremony, hey ya ya ya, sending it out. Maybe hey ya ya meant 1 and 2 and count, or communication, a speaking out, a signal, hey ya ya and 3 and 4 and a picture fell off the wall, the tacks clacked on the floor, a knock on the door, whack thump, a knock on the door. He stopped. Silence. And from the other side of the door, his landlord in a sing-songy Italian voice, "Mamma Dio, what's all that noise?" Okay, and speaking of noises and dance, I'll try to put these together well. This is could be sort of seen as a dedication to Michael Jackson, because I keep wondering, in a few thousand years, if the civilization was to pass away, the archaeologists would dig us up all the great stuff they'd find. And it's been curious that in dance, when we go to nightclubs and so on, it's just a continuation of dancing around the fire. We still do it for the same reasons that the primitives danced around the fire. So this is what it's sort of all about. It's called Archaeology Dance. Hey-ya! You want rhythm, 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 rhythm? I got rhythm, 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 rhythm. I got foot, got toe, got heel, got fire, got smoke, got dance. I got gut. I got move, move, sway, move, dance. I spin. I got movement. Their fire, their spark. Mine. Shelly, hip, belly, balls. Belly, 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 belly. Slap ground, touch ground. Huh? Ah. Thank you.
My name is Diana Hartog, and I'm from New Denver. I'm going to read 5 poems. From Whence It Comes. Whispered in my ear, a sudden premonition tells me not to fly. And palms moist, I'm trying to convince the pilot to taxi back. I don't want to go, but he's decided instead to take the freeway between Des Moines and Iowa City. This always happens. Once again I've embarked on a no-name plane that never lifts off but merely hogs 4 lanes and even risks shortcuts on winding mountain roads, and it's the wings I worry about, slicing through trees and telephone booths, cutting people off from long-distance arguments or catching them right behind the knees so they sag as at hearing bad news, which we always expect to see coming. A black speck at the horizon, a swarm of flies, a cloud of dust jiggling with tassels and the jingle of bells, until riding out of the desert and looming on the screen, it's Omar Sharif, and someone taps you on the shoulder, the usher with his flashlight and bad news. The physiognomist. Mother could tell by our eyes, and though she taught nothing of eyebrows, those little windsocks of the soul, we knew mouths shouldn't be thin, the edges tucked in with hospital corners. But then again, when choosing a mate, not too full, especially the lower lip, dissipation. The beloved's brow should be high, though wider at the temples than my father's. Above all, beware ears whose lobes haven't yet sprung free, but cling to the neck like question marks, their buried tips still deeply attached to tiny black periods of childhood. This piece comes from my continuing addiction. It's called Carrots. I held out a hand for my change, and the new waitress, she looked about my age, said, "Oh, are you a potter?" I glanced down at my outstretched palm, which glowed a distinct orange. "No, I'm a writer," I said. The next day when I returned from my ritual coffee, half hot water, I was ready with the exact amount, 50 cents. The waitress apologized. "I didn't mean to embarrass you yesterday, but I thought you might be a potter, and I'm interested in pottery." I assured her it was all right. It's just the carrots I eat. They turn my hands and feet orange. I went home, sat in front of the typewriter, vowed to give up carrots. Today, as I left the cafe, after having sat there for an hour, staring off blindly or resting my forehead in my hand, with the waitress checking at my table several times to see if anything was wrong, until I again explained that I was a writer and was thinking. Today she handed me my change and smiled and said she had a woman friend who was handicapped who was a writer. I walked out with a false spring. It's painful. Everywhere I look, I'm reminded of carrots. Their shape mocked in well-trimmed shrubs, in the flame atop the penthouse of prudential life, in the leap of teenage basketball players into the air. An empty O. Henry wrapper flares yellow-orange from the sidewalk. Ah, and the lilies, struggling from pots at the Chinese grocery. I inspect their fat stamens, tender little carrots coming along. As I walk, quivering green carrot tops everywhere. Crop short, they gather and move in waves out from under me, spreading across the golf course and plunging over cliffs into the sea. I walk down. I slip off my shoes and stand barefoot, my dark cape tossing off romantic gestures. A single carrot floats offshore, teased by currents. It drifts closer. A wave lobs it in, and then foam nudges it up across the sand, the carrot rolling over and over, right up until it just touches my orange toes. Nap. Tucking me in, my long bony feet sticking out from the end of the blanket, he promises to paint my toenails a deep browny red. The shade of the smears on the model's kimono as oddly Caucasian, she sits on her heels and sorts through a series of orange and blue prints from the West, photos of the Golden Gate that Whistler deliberately blurs, blood streaming from the woman's throat in the shape of a scarlet scarf, spilling across the foreground and lapping at the artist's white spats as he paints. And lying there, dozing, I can almost feel each faint stroke of the brush. Now on the one who had roast beef, now on the little piggy who had none. Dream of Eileen. Eileen's death had his arms around my neck. We were dancing a slow dance. He didn't mention Eileen, and neither did I. The music stopped. He thanked me, and I sat down next to Eileen's mother, patting her knee as she searched in her purse for a Kleenex. Now Eileen is dancing. She is wearing the white dress her mother picked out. Spots of pink flush her cheeks. She is smiling at something he has said as they pass in a swirl of white. He's only a man, I want to tell her. I've seen him at all these dances. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Janet Simpson-Cooke and I'm from New Denver. The first poem is Arrival. The wind lifts curtains, blows moonlight onto our bodies, passes down a ring enclosing us. The rain once silenced my fears, tonight changes tune. In a raw moment, we know each heart is spoken for. Still, we give mountains a new name. Afterward, my dreams flush out pain. A dark beetle crawls, leaves her hiding place. I no longer rescue, nor want to be rescued. The train I watched pull away 7 years ago returns in waves of light. The long, stretched sound is gone. An easy truce. The long dive toward home, winding down from stars, a lonely mountain road. We share coffee. I wake to keep him awake. This evening, a friend's birthday. All women, we treat ourselves to the town's fanciest restaurant. Could be anywhere. Summer heat, whirring fan. We order wine. Remember the last party where drunk we told stories that made our waiter reach down deep into our table. Tonight is different. We begin with men. My friend discloses, I told him I was too old for this kind of nonsense. In flushed and heady strength amazed he came around. The other single women lean backwards, sigh, we need a man around. I want to clip these words, know I will be ignored. After all, I live with one. Then, as if vengeance seeks their empty beds, the talk turns to lesbians. Reasons run as quickly as the wine down our throats. My reincarnated thinkers believe she comes to earth unfinished, she seeks female lips. Here in the car, I open an old high school wound, second-hand, around when boys were not. Peddlers we exchanged, who kissed me, who kissed you? What kept me silent, not to say I feel betrayed? Cranky, weary, an uneasy truce to excuse myself early. Inside castle walls for Sue. My mother lives in a world of terror, a house of closed windows, barricaded doors, where voices warn of dreadful people come to visit. Imagine her garden. Imagine a party she imagines, speaking softly to the ladies and gentlemen dressed just so. I remember her voice, a huge balloon. Don't go out to play. A balloon I never burst, pleasing her monsters. Today, she advises a tornado. I open all the windows. Thank you.
This is a poem called Maple Lake. When I was 10, my father took us to a cabin on Maple Lake to fish. They fished, my father, brother, and once or twice my mother, but never me. I couldn't abide boats. And besides, there was the magic of our cabin. It was a snug, dark place lit by lantern light and heated by a wood-burning stove that would talk to me. And my top bunk was level with a dormer window. Outside, facing the lake, there was a broad cantilevered porch with log posts and intricate trusses. I was carving cedar on the porch, something with an Indian theme, for I was an Indian then. My mother was making comforting noises inside, waiting for the fishermen, gone since dawn. It grew dark, and the wind blew hard in my face off the lake, and it started to rain. On a wave, I saw an upturned boat which dipped into a trough and out of sight. And I didn't say a thing when my mother began to fret about the weather and to stare lakeward. Only hoped she wouldn't see the empty boat. And she never did. But I saw it again and again as it was driven closer to our beach. And until I heard my father's hearty shout and saw him wet and heard his tale of putting in and walking home. I had them drowned and buried and still keeping it from my mother. This is a poem called Something in the Stairs. Something in the stairs to your ballet class. The rare width, the long curving banister, the bare white light. Something took me back to my boxing night when I was 13 like you and eager. On the stairway, the air was cold, vented by ill-fitting doors on Johnson, but inside warmth and the smells of work, and I remember fear broke the sweat the minute I was there. My gym above the fire hall on the street the whores were said to work had hardwood floors and 4 lazily sparring ceiling fans, walls papered with Police Gazette, a ring and rows of swollen gloves for my hands. Training alone on bags bigger than me, I jumped rope and jabbed my shadow self-consciously, postponing the rounds. But the bell and the flurry of boy boxing numbed me and always won me. And after, like here, when the night's syllabus was clinched and I was free, like you, I was breezily off on some other round. This is a poem for my daughter Claire. You said, let's dance, and I, of course, leapt at the chance, so we joined the rocking throng by the free throw line, and from then until the music ended, you held me in thrall. You wore white, but for a slim pink ribbon loose around your slender waist, and for the dancing slippers. I should have known you came with serious intent when you wore that gossamer gear, that you meant to dance. Your hair was up and fair, and pearly arms and neck were bare. You became by some miracle as we danced, the music's living gesture and step, its fleeting time, its paradigm, and I was cheered by your skill and learned a little of the knack by imitation and an act of will. And as you danced, it seemed as though you soared above me, and I became more a bystander than a partner. So light and free were you, and so attached was I, by age and custom, to the floor. You skipped and flitted, an inspired insect, your dainty body hardly held by gravity's solemn force, and slowly around me spun a bright cocoon of light. And when the music ended, I was young again. And finally, love ends. Love ends not as a dry branch snaps, but slowly as petals close when night falls. Thank you.